I was folding laundry in my living room when I heard the doorbell ring. And when I opened that door, I saw a ghost. My husband, standing on my porch, after being missing for 6 years. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold: he wasn't alone. There was a little girl holding his hand. She looked about 5 years old. She had his eyes, his smile, and she called him Daddy. I'm not gonna lie to you. What happened next absolutely shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, and the man I'd spent 7 years grieving. My name is Catherine Chen, and this is the story of how my dead husband came back to life, and how the truth he brought with him was so much worse than his disappearance ever was. So buckle up, because this story is absolutely wild from start to finish. Let me take you back to where this nightmare actually started. 6 years ago, my husband Daniel and I were living what I thought was a pretty normal life. We'd been married for 4 years. We lived in a nice suburb outside of Phoenix. He worked in IT. I was a teacher. We had plans to start a family soon. Everything seemed fine. Not perfect, but fine. You know what I mean. But then one day in March, Daniel told me he had to go on a business trip to Denver for a tech conference. Said he'd be gone for 4 days. Kissed me goodbye, grabbed his suitcase, and walked out the door. That was the last time I saw him. For 3 weeks. Day 1, he texted me that he landed safely. Day 2, he sent a quick busy day, talk tonight message. And then nothing. Radio silence. I called his phone over and over. Straight to voicemail. I called his office. They said he never showed up to the conference. I called the hotel. They had no record of his reservation. I filed a missing person report. The police investigated. They found his rental car abandoned at a rest stop outside of Flagstaff. His wallet was still in the glove compartment. His suitcase was in the trunk. His phone was never found. The detective assigned to our case told me point blank, "Mrs. Chun, based on the evidence, we believe your husband may have harmed himself." I'm very sorry. They searched the area for weeks, brought in search dogs, checked nearby hospitals. Nothing. Daniel had vanished into thin air. After 6 months, the case went cold. After a year, I held a memorial service. After 2 years, I finally accepted that my husband was gone forever. I grieved. I went to therapy. I slowly started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I sold our house because living there without him was too painful. I moved to a smaller apartment across town. I threw myself into my teaching job. I adopted a dog for companionship. I even went on a few dates, though nothing serious. And honestly, I was doing okay. Not great, but okay. Until that doorbell rang. Because when I opened that door and saw Daniel standing there, alive, healthy, holding a child's hand, every single emotion hit me at once. Shock, relief, confusion, anger, betrayal, and what he said next. It made absolutely no sense. "Katie," he said quietly, using the nickname only he called me. "I know you probably hate me right now, but please, can we come inside? I need to explain everything." I couldn't even speak. I just stood there staring at him like he was an actual ghost. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The little girl looked up at me with these big, curious brown eyes. She was wearing a pink dress and light-up sneakers. She looked so innocent, so completely unaware of the bomb her presence had just dropped on my entire world. Who is that?" I finally managed to whisper, pointing at the child. Daniel's face crumpled. "This is Emma. She's my daughter." And just like that, my knees buckled. I grabbed onto the doorframe to keep myself from collapsing. "You're what?" I practically screamed. My neighbor across the street looked over, concerned. Daniel noticed. "Please, Katie, let us come inside. I'll explain everything. I promise. Just, please don't make a scene out here." Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, to call the police, to scream at him until my voice gave out. But another part of me, the part that had loved this man, that had mourned him, that had spent 6 years wondering what happened, that part needed answers. So I stepped aside, and I let them in. We sat in my living room, Daniel on one end of a couch, me on the other end, as far away as possible. Emma sat between us, swinging her little legs and looking around my apartment with innocent curiosity. "Start talking," I said coldly, "and it better be good, because right now, I'm about 2 seconds away from calling the cops and having you arrested for, I don't even know what, but something." Daniel took a deep breath, and then he told me the most unbelievable story I've ever heard in my life. 6 years ago, he began, I did go to Denver, but not for a conference. I went because I had been contacted by someone from my past, someone I thought I'd never see again. I crossed my arms, waiting. Her name was Rachel. We dated in college, before I met you. It was serious. We were even engaged. But then she broke it off suddenly and moved to Colorado. I never heard from her again. Until that March. My stomach dropped. I already knew where this was going. She reached out through Facebook, he continued. Said she needed to see me. That it was urgent. That it was about something that happened years ago that I needed to know about. He glanced at Emma, who was now playing with a stuffed animal she'd found on my couch. When I got to Denver, Rachel told me the truth. 5 years before that meeting, 7 years before I even met you, Katie, we had a daughter together. Emma, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Wait, hold on. Because this is where the story gets even crazier. Daniel didn't just disappear because he found out he had a secret kid. What Rachel told him that day in Denver. It changed everything. And it explains why he stayed gone for 6 whole years. Let me tell you what really happened. Rachel never told me she was pregnant, Daniel said, his voice breaking. When she ended our engagement and moved to Colorado, she was already 2 months along. She decided to raise Emma on her own. She cut off all contact with me, changed her number, blocked me on everything. But then 5 years later, Rachel got sick. Really sick. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors gave her maybe a year to live. Emma was still playing, completely oblivious to the heavy conversation happening around her. Rachel knew she was dying, Daniel continued, and she didn't have any family to take care of Emma. No parents, no siblings. So she tracked me down. She told me everything. And she begged me to take Emma. So you just left? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. You just abandoned me? Without a word. Without even telling me what was happening. I panicked, he admitted, tears streaming down his face. I know that's not an excuse. I know I should have called you, should have explained. But Rachel only had weeks left, Katie. Maybe days. And I had a daughter, a real, living, breathing daughter who was about to lose her only parent. I told myself I'd go to Denver just for a few days. Just to meet Emma. Just to figure out what to do. But then Rachel died faster than anyone expected. And suddenly I was a single dad to a traumatized 4-year-old who just lost her mom. He wiped his eyes. I couldn't bring her back to Phoenix right away. She was grieving. She was scared. She didn't know me. So I stayed in Denver. I got a job there. I enrolled her in preschool. I tried to give her stability. And you couldn't pick up a phone. I shouted. You couldn't send one text to let me know you were alive. I was a coward, he said simply. Every day that passed made it harder to reach out. What was I supposed to say? Hey, honey. Sorry I've been gone for 6 months. But surprise, I have a secret daughter. I knew you'd be devastated. Furious. And I deserve that. So I just kept putting it off. And before I knew it, a year had passed. Then 2. Then 3. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man I'd loved, mourned, and slowly let go of, had been living a whole separate life in another state while I thought he was dead. Why now? I asked bitterly. Why come back after all this time? Daniel looked down at Emma. Because she deserves to know the truth about where she came from. And because I never stopped loving you, Katie. I know I have no right to say that. I know I destroyed everything. But Emma started asking questions about her family, about whether she had anyone besides me. And I realized I couldn't keep running from what I did. Now, you're probably thinking I either slammed the door in his face or called the police immediately, right? Wrong. Because what I did next shocked even me. And it definitely shocked Daniel. But before I tell you that part, you need to understand what was going through my head in that moment. I looked at Emma. Really looked at her for the first time. She was beautiful, innocent, and she had absolutely nothing to do with her father's terrible choices. This little girl had lost her mother. She'd been raised by a man who abandoned his wife. She was a victim in all of this, just as much as I was. And as angry as I was at Daniel, and trust me, I was furious. I couldn't take that anger out on a 5-year-old child. Emma, I said softly, kneeling down to her level. Do you like cookies? She nodded shyly. I have some chocolate chip cookies in the kitchen. Would you like one? Her face lit up. Yes, please. I took her hand and led her to the kitchen, leaving Daniel alone in the living room. I gave her a cookie and some milk, then turned on cartoons on my iPad to keep her distracted. Then I walked back to Daniel, and I let him have it. You are the most selfish, cowardly, horrible person I have ever met, I said, my voice low and shaking. You didn't just leave me. You let me think you were dead. Do you have any idea what these past 6 years have been like for me? I went to therapy for 3 years trying to process losing you. I cried myself to sleep for months. I blamed myself, wondering if I'd missed some sign that you were suicidal. I had nightmares about finding your body somewhere. Your parents died, thinking their son was gone forever. That hit him. Hard. His parents had passed away 4 years ago, 2 years after his disappearance. They never knew what really happened to him. I can never forgive you, I continued. Ever. What you did was unforgivable. You don't get to walk back into my life and act like we can just pick up where we left off. I know, he whispered. But, I said, taking a deep breath, that little girl in my kitchen deserves better than the mess you created. She deserves stability. She deserves honesty. And she deserves to not be caught in the middle of adult problems. I paused. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay in Phoenix. You're going to get a job. You're going to get your own place. And you're going to be a good father to Emma. That's what you owe her. And me, he asked quietly. You owe me the truth. All of it. Every detail of the last 6 years. Where you lived, what you did, why you really never called. And then you owe me space. You don't get to be in my life, romantically. That door is closed forever. But for Emma's sake, we'll figure out how to be. I don't know. Civil. Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, Katie. You're a better person than I ever deserved. You're right, I said coldly. I am. Now here's where things get complicated. Because Daniel moving back to Phoenix? That was just the beginning. Over the next few months, things happened that I never could have predicted. And honestly, some of it changed my perspective completely. Daniel found an apartment about 20 minutes from mine. He got a job with a tech company downtown. He enrolled Emma in kindergarten at a good school. And slowly, carefully, he started telling me the full truth about the past 6 years. He showed me photos from Emma's early years, her first birthday, her first day of preschool, all the moments he'd experienced while I thought he was dead. He showed me texts from Rachel before she died, begging him to promise he'd always take care of Emma. He explained how he'd used a fake name in Denver to avoid being found, how he'd lived in constant guilt and fear, how many times he'd almost reached out to me but chickened out. And honestly, part of me started to understand, not forgive, but understand why he made the choices he made. Was it right? Absolutely not. Was it forgivable? Probably not. But was it understandable? In a weird, messed up way, yeah. Kind of. Meanwhile, I started spending time with Emma. At first, it was awkward. She didn't understand who I was, or why her dad kept bringing her to my apartment. But Daniel told her the truth, in an age-appropriate way. He explained that he and I used to be married, that we'd lost touch when he moved to Colorado to take care of her, and that we were trying to be friends again. Emma was smart. Even at 5 years old, she could tell there was more to the story. But she didn't push. She just accepted that I was Miss Katie, someone her dad cared about. And you know what? Emma was amazing. Sweet, curious, funny, smart. She'd draw me pictures, ask me to read her stories, show me her favorite toys. And despite everything, despite the betrayal, the lies, the 6 years of grief, I found myself getting attached to her. One day, about 4 months after Daniel came back, Emma looked up at me with those big brown eyes and asked, Miss Katie, do you think you could ever be my mom? My heart broke into a million pieces. Oh, sweetie, I said gently, you had a mom. And she loved you so, so much. I know, Emma said, but she's in heaven now. And Daddy says you're really special. So I thought maybe. I didn't know what to say. So I just hugged her tight. That night, Daniel and I had a long conversation. A real one. Without anger or accusations. Just 2 adults trying to figure out an impossible situation. I don't expect you to love me again, he said. I don't even expect you to like me. But Katie, Emma loves you. And I think, maybe, you care about her too. I do, I admitted. She's a great kid, And none of this is her fault. I know I don't deserve a second chance, Daniel said quietly. But maybe we could try to co-parent? Not as a couple, just as two people who want what's best for Emma. I thought about it for a long time, and then I said something that surprised even me. I'll think about it. That was 8 months ago. Since then, a lot has changed. Daniel and I aren't together. We probably never will be. The trust is just too broken. The hurt is too deep, but we've built something new. Something unexpected. We co-parent Emma. She spends weekends with me sometimes. I help with homework. I go to her school events. I'm in her life. Is it weird? Yeah, absolutely. Do people judge me for it? All the time. My friends think I'm crazy for having anything to do with Daniel after what he did. My therapist says I'm processing trauma in an unconventional way. My mom thinks I should cut them both off completely and move on with my life. But here's the thing they don't understand. Emma didn't choose any of this. She didn't ask to be born from an affair that happened before I even knew Daniel existed. She didn't ask for her mom to die. She didn't ask for her dad to be a coward who ran away from his problems. She's just a kid, a sweet, innocent kid who's been through more loss in her 6 years than most people experience in a lifetime. And when I look at her, I don't see Daniel's betrayal. I see a little girl who needs love and stability. So yeah, I'm in her life. And honestly, it's helped me heal in ways I never expected. Don't get me wrong, I'm still angry at Daniel. Probably always will be. We have boundaries. He doesn't get to act like everything's okay. He doesn't get to pretend we're a happy family. But we're figuring it out. For Emma's sake. As for dating and moving on with my own life, I'm working on it. Slowly. I've actually started seeing someone new. He knows the whole complicated situation, and surprisingly, he's been really supportive. Life is messy. Relationships are complicated. And sometimes the right choice isn't the one that makes sense to anyone else. Do I wish Daniel had never left? Of course. Do I wish he'd told me the truth from the beginning? Absolutely. Do I wish I could erase the last 6 years of pain and confusion? Every single day. But I can't change the past. None of us can. All I can do is move forward and make choices I can live with. So that's my story. The story of how my dead husband came back to life with a secret daughter. And how I chose forgiveness. Not for him, but for an innocent little girl who deserved better than the mess the adults in her life created. It's not a fairy tale ending. It's not even a happy ending, really. But it's real. It's honest. And it's mine. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. And if you're going through something complicated and messy in your own life, know that you're not alone. Know that healing doesn't look the same for everyone. And know that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose compassion over anger. Even when anger would be totally justified. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, life is way too short to let other people's mistakes define your whole story. You get to write your own ending. Make it a good one.